So the next presentation is given by Christian Patrascu from Oracle, and this is called Reducing Identity Fragmentation in the New Digital Economy. So please welcome Christian Patrascu.
Thank you, Mike. So until the slides are built up, a quick introduction from myself. So my name is Christian Patrascu. I do work more than a decade for Oracle. 2001 I started, and I moved in the development organization where I am now. I'm the local representative of identity access management development here in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. For 20 minutes, there we go. For 20 minutes, of course, the agenda is pretty short, but what I would like to discuss with you all today is, first of all, trends that we're seeing in the area of identity access management. I was sitting myself on 2 panels, so some trends. I've been heavily discussing them in the panels too. But then we're going to go to what the title of this presentation is, Fragmentation in the New Digital Economy. And these 2 points, we're going to not treat them as silos. We're going to share our observation how perhaps these new trends have an impact on the fragmentation of the new digital economy. Let's start with the trends, and I'm pretty aware that in these 3 days we talked about them a lot, but I kind of shifted this around. It's not cloud first. I personally feel we have not spoken enough about mobility. We see mobility as a big trend, and security has a big impact into that trend. Actually, there are 2 facets about that which I would like to share with you. First of all, of course, it's about extending security artifacts that you have on-premise also to the mobile world. Single sign-on is a good example, right? We've done that for 15 years on-premise. We also need to deliver that on the mobile world. And for the user, it's even more important. So you have these mobile devices, sometimes username, password, you need to type it with 1 finger. So there is a requirement for these artifacts also to be seen on mobile device. And not about only single sign-on, it's about strong authentication and all the nice other security artifacts that we see on-premise. So the keyword, by the way, and I'm going to talk about this later, is extension. So not creating something new just for the mobile world, extending what we already have successfully in the enterprise. And of course, there's a second facet to that, and you all know BYOD, right? Bring your own device. So people are very eager to bring their tablets, their iPads, etc., to the enterprise. And it's my own device, right? And what happens is that IT lost a little control. And they tried on gaining control back. I call this Mobility 1.0. And MDM was a good approach, right? We tried to restrict the device. So when somebody was leaving the company, I did wipe the entire device. Well, it works if it's a company-owned device, but with private device, I have security issues. But it's also not nice if somebody is deleting my private data. Also a nice anecdote to share, especially in the financial industry, when we had meetings 2011, 2012, sometimes we had people sitting there with 2 identical iPhones, right? One a company iPhone, where they could do only emails, which was restricted. They couldn't use their camera. They could not go to iStore, etc. But then they had, of course, a second iPhone for a private use. So this was also a trend that happened, and MDM restricted just the phone. The second notion of solution, I call it Mobile 2.0, that we're seeing, is let's not restrict the device. Let's just clearly separate in between what is private and work-related. Let's put a container, let's put a workspace on the device, and in this container, we just have the business data, the company-owned data. And you know what? If the person leaves the company, I can just delete this container. So this is a big trend that we're seeing, and security has a big impact to that. Social networking. I was on the panel yesterday, and I already shared yesterday. I think at 2011 also, we as a vendor did a mistake in positioning this feature. I remember the first time that we showed this to customer, we just showed this login via Facebook, via Google. And everybody went like, okay, I don't trust Google, I don't trust Facebook. We don't need that. So we positioned incorrectly the value that is behind this feature. It's about a loosely coupled integration. It's about if my customers are on the social networks, I at least want to get some attributes from that social network to my portal. An electricity company, a customer of ours, has also a nice example how this leverages a business initiatives. So there is a legal law. Electricity companies, well, 10 years ago, if I used a lot of electricity, I was a gold member at them. I was a highly valued customer. Nowadays, they need to give us recommendation how to save electricity. And how is this company doing that? Well, the user get a personalized saving recommendation logging in via Facebook. I was asking the CSO why he's doing that via Facebook, and he said, well, the damage is pretty low. So what happens if somebody gets this recommendation? First of all, I need to legally do it. I need to get this personalized out, and I need to track it. And for this use case, it's a good example where exactly this social networking integration adds a lot of value. So it's not about trust. It's more about how does this feature enable my business initiative. Internet identities is not a new topic. We as Oracle won the KuppingerCole Innovation Award with British Telecom in 2011 about that. It's a big topic, especially as we see in the market for telecommunications, identity validation, but it's more than that. So I'm not only validating identity, I'm adding more services to that. So yes, somebody might be able to steal a record. The street, the email address might be correct. Validating that might get it true. But still, there is a lot of fraud happening. So if I create the same account from the same IP address, the risk gets higher. So it's not only just validating the identity, it's also creating additional identity access management services on top of that. Cloud computing, we covered that. In the interest of time, I'll keep this rather short. There are two facets to that. First of all, giving feature and functions for the cloud, for securing a cloud, but also very important, putting IDM into the cloud. We're speaking about a managed identity as a service or a pure cloud-related identity as a service. And Internet of Things. You heard the automotive example. We have, of course, a similar example to share. The beauty about this is you have different types of identity. You have carbon identity and you have non-carbon identities. And you have a relationship in between them, right? Again, using the automotive example, myself as a carbon identity, at one point of time in the future, I might be able to authenticate myself against the non-carbon identity, which is the car. But there are other examples out there, not only from the automotive industry. Metering is also a good example, but also the example that we heard in the panel with the fridge, and perhaps the fridge getting out of milk and the drone bringing the milk to my house. What is new about them? What's the observation? What's the key observation? And this might be bad news. IDM might not be now the top 5 priority of every CSO or CIO. But IDM is included in every of these new initiatives. Actually, I would go a step further. IDM is an enabler of exactly these initiatives. Oracle is also an apps developer, so let's take a step back and also look at the evolution of business apps, which is in the middle of the slide. Well, first of all, we see a vertical evolution about the appearance. Also the apps, so first we had client-server apps, right? We moved to web apps. And also sometimes I see a trend now of apps being more and more designed like Facebook and Twitter. Even at Oracle, we have an app called OSN, which is the Oracle Social Networks. It's funny. People who join Oracle right from university, they love this app. So they use this app a lot more like myself, who am used to the other business apps. They're even telling me that it's a lot more efficient to do even emailing via those apps. So perhaps in 2 years we get rid of emailing, you do the emails only via OSN. But you still see not only a change of appearance, also a change of usage, right? through these new paradigms. This is the vertical change, appearance and usage. But you also have a horizontal change. You have not only business apps, you have mobile apps, you have cloud apps. What do I want to say with that? Perhaps again, I can share an experience. I was in Saudi Arabia at a big financial industry, and they were claiming we're not having mobile apps. The funny thing is, in the meeting, we could prove to them via iStore, yes, they do have a mobile app from the marketing department. IT was not aware of this business initiative, which I personally find pretty funny. I think through this vertical we covered, but through this horizontal change, IT loses a little control, right? We had that with cloud too. Somebody started a business initiative and didn't let IT know. Even the purchasing department didn't know about it. So it's about loss of control that we have in this horizontal domain. Let's put it all together. Identity management, as it has been seen before, has three areas, and they're well known, they're mature, they're directory, governance, access. I think what is new through these initiatives, you might call them consumer, you might call them channel. You kind of have a matrix organization. So you have users of this identity access management. You have the enterprise, you have cloud, you have mobile, bringing new challenges. And I think we as Oracle, we're a big believer in, okay, this is a hybrid model. You cannot get rid of what you have in the enterprise and put IDM in the cloud. There will be requirements in each of these buckets. So this is IDM. This is the big challenge that we're seeing, and this is also where fragmentation might come from, is something that falls into these buckets. Like I said, should you deal with that? What are some recommendations? Well, treat it hybrid, right? Don't think about let's kill the enterprise and let's just move to the cloud. You also need to think about how do I, and this is a key word, extend. So if you already have IDM services on premise, how do I extend this? I don't want to build a new policy store. This is duplication of work. This also causes fragmentation. REST is beautiful to achieve this. And the third point is avoid fragmentation. And this is what this presentation is about. The funny thing is, we always spoke about fragmentation in the past. And fragmentation happens, right? Have a look how companies are organized. They're organized in departments. You have purchasing, you have R&D, you have marketing, you have sales, and so on. So yes, fragmentation happens. But I think the key question is, why is the risk of fragmentation nowadays pretty high? Let's think back what we spoke about, right? All these new business initiatives happening in some departments. This higher the risk of fragmentation. So let's take an example. Marketing has a new mobile initiative, and perhaps the IT department doesn't know about it. So especially in the last 1 or 2 years, the risk of fragmentation by IT losing a tad of control is a lot higher. I think the outcome of this, breaches can happen, inconsistent access policies. Again, you're duplicating rules. You're duplicating the rules framework. And what also can be an issue, of course, is compliance. And I know you're also compliant without a platform or a central IDM system, but yet, when the auditor comes from all these different departments, you need to pull the data together. So yes, you're compliant, but you're compliant at a certain cost. This is what we believe in. So yes, a unified identity management, we call it a platform. We should avoid this whole notion of fragmentation. And it's like I said, especially the risk of having this now is a lot higher than 5 years ago. We did a study which is analyzing point solutions versus platform. I don't want to go into details, but we're more than happy to talk about the studies. A lot of cost savings and especially a fewer audit deficiency if you look at this as a unified IDM platform. How do we build our products? How we as Oracle do design our products based on these observations that we did. We also focus on best of breed because we also understood from customers, yes, there might be urgent needs. There might be perhaps not the time to put first in place a unified IDM platform. There might be a legislation law that you need to comply with. And this is why best of breed is also important for us. Unify what we ask from you in the market, we as Oracle also did. To give you an example, provisioning and governance, two different solutions 1 year ago. We did unify them. It absolutely makes no sense to have a provisioning engine and an attestation engine. And yes, on data level, I need to sync, and even on process level. So take recertification as an example, I also need to sync. It needs to be unified. A lot of error that I got from customer were from this data synchronization. We did unify these two products. We unified our workflows. We have one unified workflow. Internet scale, it's a big thing. Of course, if you talk about Internet of Things, you have not billion of devices. And here scale is very important. We have customers live with millions of users in the access management space. This is something we're investing pretty heavily. Business friendly, a good point. We expect the business department perhaps to do user onboarding or application onboarding even, right? So more and more things are moving from the IT department to the business department. We need to enable this trend, and of course, open standards. Key focus areas, which I would like to drill a little down into, two things. So first of all, this whole notion of mobility. There are two facets to that. So first of all, mobile and social, and I already made the point, it's extending security artifacts to the mobile devices. Everything have on-premise already. We have the policies on-premise. We have the function on-premise. It's just extending these through REST interfaces. So have single sign-on, have strong authentication, have all the nice functions that we have on-premise also available for the mobile world. Not only reuse of functions, also reuse of security policies. I do not want to create another silo. This is why MDM was not successful. MDM created another silo. It's about users, it's about policies, it's about roles. The second thing is this mobile 2.0. Some people call it mobile application management, containerization, workspaces, mobile security, to enable this whole notion of BYOD. Create on mobile devices, separate personal and business data and corporate data and apps. This is the keyword. But it's not only that. It's also the entire life cycle. Think about it this way. Why should I just provision to a user their entitlements, their roles, and their accounts? Why not also their mobile apps? Also, the mobile apps and data usage depends on the role that I have in my enterprise. So even here, I have a unification with my provisioning engine, with my governance engine. So even here, the story is bigger. It's not only about security. This is why I say security being part of a business initiative. Also at Oracle, we delivered mobile apps, but we also have a platform how you can build mobile apps. Build it once, deployed either for Android or iPhone for multiple operating system. And also on the back end, the mobile platform that you have. So the story, even with that point, is bigger. And the last thing, I think I started 2 minutes late, so I'm going to take this 2 minutes to speak about cloud. So there are three aspects to that. Well, first of all, what we call private cloud. That's on your left, to think it around. But it's also not only private cloud, it's defining or delivering features for the cloud, like we did with the Cloud SSO portal. Yet also, we spoke about SSO on-premise, we spoke about mobile, now we speak about SSO in the cloud. So if you have a lot of cloud apps, just give your user a nice portal that they can do single sign-on with. The bucket in the middle, it's the managed identity as a service. So if you prefer that you own the data, but somebody else manages it, so it's kind of cloud, but it's a single tenant cloud, then there's something which we call managed identity service. It's a full-fledged enterprise IDM functionality, in your enterprise, but just operated by somebody else. And then, of course, it's identity as a service, so identity functions the cloud. I think the last point is also very important. It's integrated with the enterprise IDM. So there's an integration. This is what we believe in, this hybrid model, right? It's not that you switch off your enterprise IDM system, move it in the cloud, you're done. Everything is good. No, it's also here a hybrid model, and this is why this whole notion of platform for enterprise, platform for mobile, and platform for cloud from an IDM perspective is super important. Looking ahead, Internet of Things, I think we touched base on that. I think scale is coming more important. I think also this relationship in between identities, carbon identities and non-carbon identities. And by the way, this was also something that is not new, right? So we had machine to machine, M2M, 2004, 2005. It was not that successful, right? One reason also was that it was not identity related. Identity plays a major accomplishment into this. A last thought I want to share, speaking to a CSO of a telco, so you can see how identity gets important. What they're thinking is, in 2 years, there won't be any telephone number, right? So everything will be based on identities. And we're doing it now, right? If I call somebody, I'm not dialing a telephone number anymore. So also their approach is even more identity related, and the business value, what is here, is providing even additional services. You cannot provide an additional service based on a number, but yes, based on an identity. Key takeaways, and then I'm done. 2 things. First of all, IDM, it's not anymore a standalone project like 10 years ago. It's an enabler. It's coupled with the business initiatives. We spoke about this business initiatives. This is fantastic, and this is something I'm in the industry since a long time particularly proud of, right? 10 years ago, it was just keeping the bad guys out. 5 years ago or 4 years ago, it was compliance. And now we are part of every big business initiatives in every company. This is good news, but there's still some risk. I won't call it bad news, but this is the identity fragmentation, especially because of these new business initiatives. And the key here is to avoid this identity fragmentation by, this is the key word, I think I used it today several times, extending enterprise identities to these new business initiatives. And Mike, through that, I'm done.
Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you. So I'm very intrigued by what you've had to say, and I think that from the KuppingerCole point of view, there are 2 things that matter to security. One is identity, and the other is the information. And you have to apply stewardship to both of them. So thank you very much.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you.
That.
Thank you. So